Long ago, in the days when animals still spoke and walked like men, Umbay the tortoise was known not just for his cleverness, but also for his arrogance. He was small, slow, and not the strongest, but he always found a way to outsmart others. And because he always won, he believed he was the wisest of all creatures. One year, a great famine struck the land. The rivers dried up, the trees bore no fruit, and the earth cracked under the sun's merciless gaze. The animals grew weak with hunger, and despair filled the land like a thick fog. But one morning, a flock of birds flew over the forest, singing joyfully. They had discovered a secret. A great feast was being held in the sky by the gods. The birds, being light and free, could fly up to the feast, but the animals trapped on the ground could only watch in sorrow. Tortoise, always scheming, hatched a plan. He went to the birds and spoke in his smooth, deceitful voice. "My dear friends," he said, "you know that I am the wisest among us. A feast in the sky is a great honor, and it must be done properly. I should come with you as your leader, so that everything is done with wisdom and respect." The birds, trusting him, agreed. But how would Tortoise get to the sky? "Simple," he said, smiling. "Each of you will give me one feather, and I will make wings for myself." The birds plucked their finest feathers and wove them into wings for Tortoise. And so, together they soared into the heavens, Mobay the tortoise flying among them like a king. When they reached the feast, the gods had laid out golden bowls filled with sweet yams, fresh fruits, and steaming meats. But before anyone could eat, Tortoise stood up and spoke loudly, his voice full of authority. "In our tradition," he declared, "a guest must have a name before partaking in a feast. Today, I take the name, all of you." The birds and gods nodded, not thinking much of it. Then, when the time came to serve the food, Tortoise asked, "Who is this feast prepared for?" "For all of you," the gods replied. Tortoise grinned. But you see, I am all of you. So this feast belongs to me alone." And with that he pushed aside the starving birds and began eating, stuffing his belly with more food than he had ever seen in his life. The birds watched in horror as he devoured every last morsel, leaving nothing for them. Betrayed and furious, they flew into a rage. "You have deceived us," they cried. One by one, they took back their feathers from his back, leaving him flightless and heavy. When the feast was over, Tortoise realized his mistake. Without wings, he could not return to the earth. He turned to the gods, but they only shook their heads. Ashamed and afraid, he called out to the animals below, begging them to lay out something soft for him to land on. But no one had forgotten his greed. Only the parrot, who still had a bit of kindness left in her heart, agreed to help. "I will tell your wife to spread out the softest thing she can find," she said. But when Parrot reached the ground, she whispered something else to Tortoise's wife. "Your husband says you should lay out the hardest things you can find, so that he may land like a great warrior." Thinking it was his wish, Tortoise's wife gathered stones, sharp twigs, and broken clay pots. With no other choice, Tortoise let go of the sky. Down, down, down he fell, faster and faster, the wind screaming past his ears. He crashed onto the sharp stones, and his beautiful shell shattered into 1,000 pieces. For moons he lay in pain, broken and weak. When he finally healed, his shell was never the same, cracked and scarred forever. And so, from that day on, the tortoise carried the weight of his own greed on his back, a reminder that cleverness without kindness leads only to ruin. Moral of the story: children, remember, greed and deceit may give you victory for a moment, but in the end, they will leave you broken.